Hey, before anything else, can I ask you a quick favor? Your subscription is what keeps this channel alive. If you've ever felt something from this story or any of the others, or if this channel has ever made your day better, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps me way more than you can imagine. Now, let's get into the story. Princess Celeste had always known that her heart was not hers to protect. Since the age of 13, her hand had been a symbol of leverage, a vessel of peace between kingdoms, a thing promised, not offered. Love, she had long accepted, was a luxury for women who were not born into power. Her mother had told her once, with quiet steel in her voice, that queens did not marry for desire but for duty, and that in time, affection might bloom like a stubborn winter flower if the soil of alliance was rich enough. And so, when the emissaries of Thornvalen arrived bearing scrolls, silver, and the proposal of a union, she didn't flinch. She signed her name with a hand steady from years of practiced silence, even as her stomach turned. The offer was generous. Peace, trade, protection. But it came with a name that made the court whisper, Sir Adrian, the kingdom's most formidable knight. Tales of their valor spread like wildfire in war camps and markets alike. A warrior who had slain beasts, defended villages, and single-handedly led a charge that turned the tide of battle in the Black Valley. But what made the stories linger wasn't the blood or the glory. It was the helmet. Sir Adrian, it was said, never removed it. Not to eat, not to sleep, not even to pray. Some believed the knight bore a face marred by flame. Others swore it was a vow of silence or a penance for sins long buried. Whatever the reason, no living soul claimed to have seen the knight's face. When Celeste asked her ladies-in-waiting what they knew of him, they exchanged nervous glances and murmured half-myths. None had met him. None had heard his voice. Still, the treaty was signed, the wedding date set, and 1 week later, Sir Adrian arrived at the royal palace. Celeste watched from the high balcony as the procession wound through the gates, banners snapping in the wind. Her breath caught when she saw him, or rather, the imposing figure clad in steel, atop a midnight stallion. The armor gleamed, untouched by dust or time, and the helmet reflected the sun so fiercely it was as if the knight wore fire upon his head. He did not wave to the crowd. He did not bow. But when he looked up, directly toward her, something deep in Celeste's spine thrummed. That night, they dined together for the first time. He sat across from her, perfectly still, speaking little but listening with a kind of intensity that made her pulse quicken. His voice, when he used it, was low and smooth, not cold, but restrained, deliberate. "I am honored to meet you at last, Your Highness," he said as the candles flickered between them. "You may call me Adrian." She smiled politely. "Only if you'll call me Celeste." He inclined his head. "Then it will be my honor, Celeste." His gloved hand rested near hers on the table, never reaching, but close enough that she felt the heat of his presence. She found herself leaning in without meaning to. He asked about her studies, her thoughts on the grain crisis in the East, her opinions on poetry and swordsmanship. When she mentioned that she had trained with a blade until her governess deemed it unladylike, he let out the smallest huff of amusement. "You would have been formidable," he murmured. "Still might be." She narrowed her eyes. "Do you jest?" "Never," Adrian said. "I've found that a sharp mind wields more power than any blade." She should have found it absurd, this courtship conducted with a man in full armor, face hidden behind polished steel. But instead, she felt a strange lightness in her chest. She looked forward to their meetings, brief though they were. Adrian was always respectful, always distant, but something in his posture, the tilt of his head when she spoke, the way he lingered half a step behind when escorting her through the gardens, it spoke of a softness, a silent gravity that pulled at her. And the way he listened to her, truly listened, with no interruption, no correction, no patronizing smile, it made her feel seen in a way no nobleman ever had. Once, in the rose courtyard, she turned to find him already looking at her, helmet tilted slightly. "You always wear it," she said without thinking, "even in the sun." "It's part of me," Adrian said, "and perhaps a shield from expectations." She studied him. "What would happen if you removed it?" He was silent. Then, all truths have their time. You will know mine, when it is safe. She wanted to press. She wanted to rip it from his head and demand to know the truth behind the echo in his voice, the stillness of his body, the way he carried her gaze like a weight. But she didn't. Instead, she said softly, I hope I'm worthy of it, of the truth. His gloved fingers twitched. You are already more than I deserve. Her throat tightened, and she hated herself a little for wanting to reach out and touch steel and not mind the cold. Months passed, and slowly, impossibly, she forgot the bargain of it all. She found herself smiling when he approached, laughing when he made some dry comment under his breath. Her chambermaids said she glowed. She said nothing. On the eve of the wedding, she could not sleep. She stood at the window in her nightgown, staring into the dark, wondering what face waited behind the metal, wondering if her heart had already chosen. And when the bells rang the following day and she walked toward him, veiled in ivory, her fingers did not tremble. She did not fear what lay beneath. And yet, when the doors closed behind them and the marriage was sealed with wine and breath, she turned to him in the silence of the bridal chamber and whispered, Will you take it off now? He stood still. Then slowly, silently, his hands rose to the clasps. One by one, he undid them. The helmet lifted, fell away, and her heart stopped. The helmet fell to the floor with a dull, deliberate sound that echoed through the chamber like a bell struck in the heart. Celeste stared, breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat, as the woman before her straightened slowly, golden hair falling in loose waves from beneath the now-absent metal. Her skin was pale, her jawline sharp, her mouth a delicate bow. But it was the eyes that stunned Celeste into silence. Blue. Not cold or cruel or detached like she had feared, but deep and burning and vulnerable in a way that made her ache. The woman didn't speak at first. She stood still, armor still clinging to her body, as if afraid to move, afraid to break whatever fragile thread now stretched between them. My name, she said finally, voice softer now, unfiltered by metal, is Adriana. Not Adrian. Not truly. Celeste felt dizzy. She reached for the bedpost, fingers white-knuckled, staring at the stranger, who was not a stranger at all. You lied to me, she whispered. Adriana's mouth tightened. I did. I had to. They would never have sent a woman. Never have trusted me to lead. I was a knight in everything but name. But they would not have seen me as anything more than a foolish girl with a sword unless I wore the armor and the lie. So you lied to marry me. No, Adriana's voice broke. I didn't lie for that. The marriage was political. I never imagined, I never thought I would come to care. She stepped forward once. Stopped. But I do. More than I ever intended. More than I should. Celeste didn't move. Her pulse roared in her ears. She thought of every moment they had shared, every conversation, every look, every near touch, and felt her mind folding in on itself. You touched me, she said. You stood so close. You made me believe that I was safe, Adriana finished, pain lacing her words. That you could trust me. And now I have ruined that. Why now? Celeste asked. Why tell me tonight? Because you deserve the truth before I took another breath as your wife. Because I couldn't, she swallowed hard. I couldn't live this lie with you. Not when what I feel is real. Silence stretched between them. Then Celeste asked quietly, And what do you feel? Adriana hesitated. I feel terrified. I feel like I'm standing at the edge of the world, and the only thing keeping me from falling is the sound of your voice. Her voice was barely a whisper now. I feel like I've never wanted anything more than I want to be known by you. Truly. As I am. Celeste stepped forward, eyes locked on hers. And who are you, Adriana? The knight exhaled shakily. I am a woman who wanted freedom, who wanted to fight for something that mattered, who saw the cage of her gender and chose the sword instead of submission. I am the same one who listened when you spoke, who saw the sadness you never said out loud, who watched you hold your own walls like armor and thought, she understands. Celeste's chest rose and fell, every breath sharper than the last. You were never going to tell me, were you? If the wedding hadn't happened. I wanted to, Adriana admitted. Every day. But every day I feared that if I did, you'd walk away. And I couldn't bear that. She took off one gauntlet, then the other, letting them drop gently to the floor. Her hands were smaller than Celeste had imagined, scarred, strong, but trembling now. You can have this marriage annulled, Adriana said. No one will question you. I'll take the blame. I'll leave in silence. You will not be dishonored. And you? Celeste asked. What would happen to you? Adriana smiled, and it broke something in her. I've faced worse than exile. The quiet between them thickened. Outside, a storm began to whisper against the windows, soft rain tapping like fingers on glass. Celeste stepped closer. Slowly. Her fingers brushed Adriana's jaw. The knight flinched, not from fear but from reverence. You let me believe, Celeste said, that I was wanted. You were, Adriana breathed. You are. Even now. Especially now. Their foreheads touched. The air between them was electric and unbearably tender. Adriana didn't move, didn't reach. Only waited, trembling like a blade held too long in a storm. And if I asked you to stay? Celeste whispered. Adriana's breath caught. Then I would stay. Forever. Celeste tilted her head, kissed her lightly once, testing the reality of her, the taste of her, the truth, and found that it did not burn. It steadied her. She deepened the kiss, hands moving to Adriana's collar, to the plates of armor that still separated them. Adriana made a soft sound in her throat, as if she had been holding her breath for years. Let me see you, Celeste said. All of you. Wordlessly, Adriana undid each clasp, each buckle, letting the weight fall away. Beneath it, she wore a linen shift, damp with sweat and nerves, her body lean and strong, mapped by old scars and calluses that told a lifetime of defiance. Celeste ran her hands over her shoulders, her sides, her back, learning her without armor, without lies. Adriana stood still, eyes closed, as if bracing for rejection. But instead, Celeste whispered, You're beautiful. The knight looked at her, shocked. You're not angry? I'm furious, Celeste said. But not because you're a woman. Her voice trembled. Because you made me believe that wanting you was dangerous. Adriana looked like she might cry. It was. It still is. Then we'll face the danger together. She kissed her again, longer this time, deeper. And when they finally collapsed onto the bed, bodies pressed, hearts unguarded, Celeste felt something shift. Not in fear, not in shame, but in recognition. In the morning, the kingdom would demand answers. There would be fury, betrayal, perhaps war. But tonight, there was only the truth, and the woman she had married, and the fire between them that could no longer be hidden behind steel. The morning came far too soon. Pale sunlight crept across the marble floor of the bridal chamber, casting soft gold over tangled sheets, discarded armor, and the two women tangled in its center. Celeste lay still, one arm draped over Adriana's waist, her cheek resting against bare skin that was no longer hidden behind metal and legend. She could hear Adriana's breathing, steady, though not quite calm, and beneath that, the rhythm of her heart, quickened even in sleep. It should have felt strange. It should have felt like a mistake. But instead, Celeste felt the terrifying warmth of something real blooming where politics had once lived. When Adriana stirred, her first instinct was to reach for the helmet, but her fingers met only the smooth linen of her shift, and then Celeste's hand. No more hiding, Celeste whispered. Adriana's eyes opened slowly, uncertainty flickering like a candle in the wind. I thought you might be gone. And miss the scandal of a royal morning after? She teased, but her voice caught halfway through, trembling. No. I'm still here. Adriana's expression softened, but tension still clung to her posture. You know what comes next. Celeste nodded. The court will be expecting to see Sir Adrian at the post-wedding audience. They'll be waiting to see how we sit side by side as husband and wife. And instead they'll see a fraud, Adriana said bitterly. A woman who deceived an entire kingdom. A woman who saved mine, Celeste said, fierce now. A knight who gave her life to protect people who would have never allowed her to hold a sword. And someone she trailed off. Adriana turned her face toward her. Someone you what? Celeste swallowed. Someone I trust. Someone I'm beginning to care for, in ways I didn't think possible. Adriana blinked. Even now? After everything? Especially now. A knock shattered the quiet. 3 firm taps, sharp, official. Adriana sat up instantly, already scanning the room for her armor. Celeste caught her hand. Don't. Not yet. The voice behind the door belonged to her lady-in-waiting, timid but urgent. Your Highness? Forgive the intrusion. The council has gathered. They request your presence in the throne hall. Immediately. Celeste met Adriana's eyes. We don't have time to plan. Then we tell them the truth. If we do, they'll destroy you. Love what you've seen so far and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. Adriana's jaw clenched. Then let them try. But Celeste's blood ran cold. She could already imagine it. The king's advisors with their thin smiles and sharp laws, the nobles who had wagered their wealth on this alliance, the scribes, the priests, the soldiers, the people, her people. They would not understand, and she wasn't sure she could make them. She dressed slowly, carefully. Her wedding gown lay crumpled on the floor like a ghost of promises undone, so she chose a simpler blue velvet, high-necked and unadorned, as if trying to disappear into herself. Adriana stepped into her armor with the practiced grace of someone who had spent half her life living inside it. The helmet remained untouched. Will you wear it again? Celeste asked softly. Adriana's fingers paused at the neck guard. If it protects you. And what if it condemns us? Adriana hesitated. Then I'd rather stand beside you barefaced and fall with dignity. The throne hall was already full when Celeste entered, the air thick with anticipation. Her father's throne sat empty. He was still recovering from illness. And in his place, the chancellor presided with smug authority. Nobles turned as she walked. Servants hushed. And beside her, Adriana moved like a shadow of steel, faceless once again. Your Highness, the chancellor intoned, bowing with measured precision. We offer our blessings upon your union. The kingdom rejoices in the strength this alliance brings. Thank you, Chancellor, Celeste replied, voice even. And where is your new husband? He asked, glancing toward the knight. Surely he will remove his helmet now that the vows are sealed. Celeste's breath caught. Adriana stood still. The room tensed. That won't be necessary, Celeste said quickly. Sir Adrian prefers to maintain his vow of anonymity outside the battlefield. The chancellor raised a brow. Surely that cannot extend to the throne itself. Another voice chimed in. Duke Ellery, a man who had always eyed her crown like a prize. I agree. The people have the right to see the face of the man who now holds half the kingdom's fate. Celeste's heart pounded. She looked at Adriana, who did not move. Then back at the court, every gaze a blade. Sir Adrian is loyal, she said. Brave. Honorable. That is what should matter. Perhaps, the chancellor said coolly, but we deal in truths here, not mysteries. He stepped forward. Remove your helmet, Sir Adrian. Let the court see the hero they have celebrated. Adriana turned slowly. Celeste could feel the air tighten. Adriana, don't, she whispered. But Adriana reached up, hands trembling. Celeste grabbed her wrist. They'll destroy you. They already will, she whispered. Let it be for something honest. And before anyone could stop her, the helmet came off. A silence like death fell upon the throne hall. Adriana's helmet hit the stone floor with a sound that seemed to echo endlessly, and what followed was not chaos, but worse. Absolute stillness. Every noble, every knight, every advisor turned their eyes to the woman standing beside Princess Celeste, face now bare, golden hair falling against the curve of her breastplate, eyes wide but unflinching. Adriana didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her face told them everything. She was not the man they had all celebrated, not the warrior prince they had traded treaties and favors for. She was a lie to them, a heresy to some, a threat to most. Celeste could feel the court fracturing beneath her feet, not in noise or outrage, but in something colder, recalculation. "What is this?" Duke Ellery said, voice sharp and brittle. "Is this some mockery of law? Of tradition?" The Chancellor stepped forward, tone clipped. "Explain yourself, Sir Adrian. Or is it Adriana now? Who sent you? By whose authority have you stood before this court under false pretenses?" Adriana kept her chin high. "By no one's authority but my own." A gasp rippled through the chamber. "Then you admit the deception?" "I admit that I did what I had to do to serve, to protect, to survive." The Chancellor's eyes darkened. "You deceived the crown, deceived this kingdom, deceived our princess." "No," Celeste said suddenly, voice cutting through the room like glass. "She never deceived me. Not truly." All heads turned. Adriana looked at her, startled. Celeste took a breath, her spine straightening, her voice clear. "Adriana fought for us long before she stood at my side. She led your armies. She bled for your land. You sang songs of her victories. Now you ask for her blood." "She lied," Ellery spat. "That makes her treasonous. She lied to survive a world that would have never let her prove herself otherwise. A woman cannot hold land. A woman cannot marry a princess. It is law." "Then the law is wrong," Celeste said. Gasps again. The Chancellor stepped closer. "Careful, Your Highness. Am I not heir to this kingdom? Is it not my right to choose my consort? Within reason, within the confines of custom. Customs change. Not this one." Celeste turned to face them all. "Then write a new one. You want peace? You want strength? She is stronger than any man in this room. She earned this place." "You are blinded by affection," Ellery said. "You jeopardize everything. The alliance, the bloodlines, the very soul of this court." "I see clearly," Celeste said, jaw tight. "For the first time in my life." The Chancellor's mouth curled in distaste. "And what would you have us do? Accept this farce? Let the people see their future queen shackled to a fraud?" "She is not a fraud," Celeste growled. "She is my wife." A beat. The Chancellor looked to the nobles gathered, many of whom now wore expressions of barely concealed panic. "Then you leave us no choice." "What does that mean?" Adriana asked, stepping forward. "It means," the Chancellor said, "that the council must convene. Until then, you are to remain in your chambers. Both of you. Guards, escort the princess and her companion to the royal wing. No one is to enter. No one is to leave." "You would imprison us?" Celeste asked, stunned. "We protect the kingdom, Your Highness, even from itself." Before she could protest, steel surrounded them. Guards she had known since childhood now stood like walls, eyes averted. Adriana reached for her blade, but Celeste caught her hand. "No," she whispered. "Not here. Not now." And so they were led from the throne hall in silence, the court watching them go like traitors rather than royalty. The door slammed behind them. The lock turned. Alone again, Celeste paced the chamber, fury burning just beneath her skin. Adriana sat on the edge of the bed, helmet in her hands. "I shouldn't have taken it off," she murmured. "You told the truth," Celeste said. "And it cost us everything. Would you take it back?" Adriana asked. "If you could undo it?" Celeste stopped. Turned. "No." "Because I would still be here. Still choosing you." Adriana looked up. "Even now? Even if they strip you of your crown?" Celeste crossed the room and knelt before her. "A crown means nothing if I can't wear it beside you." Adriana touched her face, gently. "I would leave. I would vanish. Spare you this. And I would follow. Do you understand? There is no throne, no kingdom, no name worth more than what I feel for you." Adriana's breath hitched. Celeste, a knock interrupted them.
Low.
Secretive. Celeste opened the hidden door that led through the servant passage. One of her old maids stood there, shaking. Forgive me, Your Highness. I shouldn't be here. But they're gathering the council tonight. In secret. There are whispers that they mean to annul the marriage. Strip you of your claim. Declare you unfit. What would happen to Adriana?
She'd be tried.
Possibly executed. Or exiled. Adriana stood. Then we run.
Now.
Tonight. Celeste's pulse pounded in her ears. If I run, I lose the chance to change everything. If you stay, you could lose your life. I'm not afraid of death, Celeste said. I'm afraid of silence. The maid slipped away. The passage closed. Adriana turned to her, anguish written across her face. What are you going to do? Celeste walked to the window, looked down at the courtyard below. I'm going to walk back into that chamber tomorrow. I'm going to demand the right to speak. And I'm going to make them see the way I do. And if they don't, Celeste turned, fire in her voice. Then I will burn this kingdom down before I let them take you from me. Dawn broke over the palace with a sky painted in bruised lavender and gray, as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. Celeste stood before the tall glass mirror in her chamber, fastening the clasp of a deep crimson cloak over her shoulders, the color of queens, of blood, of defiance. Her hands didn't tremble. Not anymore. Adriana sat by the hearth, her armor once more discarded, wearing only her simple shift, eyes fixed on the fire as if searching for a future in its flickering light. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I do, Celeste answered, turning. Because if I don't, someone else will write the end of our story, and they'll make it a tragedy. Adriana rose slowly, crossing the room until they stood face to face. I was prepared to die for you yesterday, she said, voice raw. But I'm not prepared to watch you destroy yourself for me. Celeste smiled, soft, sad, but sure. Then you'll just have to trust me. Like I trusted you the night you took off your helmet. A knock interrupted them. Not the brisk knock of a guard or servant, but slow, deliberate. Celeste opened the door and found Lady Marin, her former tutor, and now one of the few women on the Royal Advisory Circle, standing with her veil pulled low and a bundle clutched in her hands. You'll wear this today, Marin said, stepping inside without waiting. The council meets at noon. You'll enter not as a bride, not as a child, but as the heir apparent. And you will not kneel. You knew, Celeste said, stunned. Marin only nodded. I suspected. But now I am certain. And I would rather follow a queen who chooses her heart than a court that chooses its fears. She handed Celeste a ring, a signet that once belonged to her grandmother. Heavy, regal, meant for moments that shaped history. Celeste swallowed hard and slid it on. Adriana watched from the shadows, her hands clenched behind her back, as if she could will herself into stillness. When the doors opened at noon and Celeste entered the grand council hall, silence fell like ash. Every noble, every advisor, every strategist and judge turned to face her. The king's throne remained empty, still draped in velvet while he recovered from illness. At its base stood the chancellor, cloaked in gold, flanked by dukes and lords whose eyes burned with calculation. Adriana followed her, helmet in hand but face exposed, walking 2 steps behind as tradition dictated, but no one missed the way her gaze stayed locked on Celeste, protective and proud. You come without summons, the chancellor said coldly. I come as heir, Celeste replied, voice steady. And this chamber answers to the crown. It answers to law, Duke Ellery interjected. And law was violated. So judge me, Celeste said, stepping forward. Judge us both. Let the court decide whether love is truly the threat you claim it to be. Murmurs rippled through the hall. You wish to speak in defense of your consort? I speak in defense of my right to choose, Celeste said. And of hers to live. The chancellor raised a brow. Very well. Speak. Celeste turned to face the gathered court, heart pounding. You speak of deception, of disgrace, of tradition. But what has tradition given us? Wars fought in the name of names, alliances that crumble at the first betrayal, marriages forged in silence and regret. You would have me wed a man I did not know, for peace you could never guarantee. Instead, I was given a choice. A partner. A woman who has risked everything to be more than the world allowed her to be. A knight who fought your battles while you sang songs about the man she pretended to be. You praised her strength, her strategy, her sacrifice, until you saw her face. And now you dare to call her unworthy. Ellery's voice rang out. She is a woman. So am I, Celeste snapped. And yet you hand me a crown. If I am worthy of a throne, why is she not worthy of my hand? Because it breaks every law we've known. Then the laws are broken, she thundered. And it is our duty to mend them. Not by erasing what frightens us, but by facing it. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. You risk your claim. Let them try to take it, Celeste said, stepping toward the dais. Let them explain to the people why the daughter they raised, the heir they groomed, is being cast aside for loving too fiercely. Let them try to erase the knight who saved our armies while they counted their coin. I will not beg for my place. I will fight for it, just as she did. Adriana stood taller behind her, and Celeste felt the room tremble. Felt something shift, subtle but irreversible. A voice rose from the council's left. Baroness Naira, usually silent, stood. I watched Sir Adrian ride through my city during the flood. She carried children on her back and ordered food from her own rations. I did not see a man. I saw a protector. Another voice joined. Then another. Whispers turned to agreement. Not everyone. Not enough. But a fracture had opened. And in that silence, the Chancellor spoke again. You ask us to amend centuries of law for one love. I ask you to recognize a truth that has already changed the future, Celeste said. You can resist it, but it will not stop. He studied her, lips pressed into a grim line. We will vote at dusk. Until then, the princess is to remain in her chambers. Alone. Celeste started to protest, but Adriana reached for her hand, squeezed it once, quietly, firmly, before letting go. We'll wait, Celeste said. But I will not kneel. The guards did not bind her. Not this time. She walked from the chamber with her head held high. And when the doors closed behind her, she felt the weight of everything she'd risked settle into her bones like winter. Adriana waited outside, having been barred from entering the deliberation. Well, she asked. Celeste exhaled slowly. I planted the match. We'll see if they light the fire. And if they don't. Celeste turned toward her, eyes fierce and unwavering. Then we burn it down ourselves. Dusk crept over the palace like a second skin, swallowing the gold of day and replacing it with bruised shadows. In the royal chambers, silence reigned, broken only by the faint ticking of the ornate clock above the hearth and the quiet rhythm of Celeste pacing the marble floor in bare feet. She had changed from the crimson cloak into a simpler ivory gown, something soft and unadorned, because she didn't want to look like a queen begging for permission. She wanted to look like a woman ready to walk away from everything. Adriana stood by the window, arms crossed over her chest, still in her armor, helmet resting on the ledge beside her. Her eyes were fixed on the courtyard below, where torchlight flickered and soldiers moved like restless ghosts. They're moving guards into formation, she said quietly. Double the usual number. And not just ceremonial. Celeste stopped. You think they're preparing for violence? I think they're preparing for anything. And I think we'd be fools not to do the same. A knock at the door sent both of them into motion. Adriana reached for her blade. Celeste grabbed her wrist. Wait. The voice that followed was soft, familiar. It's me, Marin. Celeste opened the door and let the older woman in. She moved quickly, her expression dark. I don't have much time. Listen carefully. The vote is not going your way. The Chancellor has rallied the Southern Dukes. Ellery has offered incentives to the coastal houses. And someone has offered them something better than scandal. Celeste's heart dropped. What do you mean? Marin hesitated. They've begun circulating a letter. A forged confession. Alleging that Adriana seduced you as part of a plan to seize the throne herself. that she poisoned your mind, manipulated your emotions. They're calling her a usurper, a traitor. Adriana laughed, bitter and quiet. Clever. Let them cast me as the villain. It's easier than admitting they simply can't accept the truth. It's not just rumor, Marin said. There's a plan in motion. If the vote goes against you, and it likely will, they won't just annul the marriage. They'll arrest her on charges of sedition, possibly treason. And me? Celeste asked, her voice like ice. You'll be spared, out of mercy, or pity, or calculation. Then they don't know me at all. Marin stepped closer, eyes sharp. If you want to survive, you have to leave tonight. Both of you. I've arranged horses. Disguises. I can buy you enough time to cross the border into Valdarin. Once there, you'll be out of reach. Adriana shook her head. We don't run. This isn't cowardice, Marin said. It's survival. Celeste stared at the hearth. Her mind raced. Fire roared inside her chest. If I run now, they'll rewrite everything. They'll call it weakness.
Call it shame.
They'll erase what we are. And if you stay, they may kill her, Marin snapped. They won't touch her, Celeste said. Not while I still wear the crown. Adriana turned toward her, voice low. If they come for me, don't interfere. Don't ask me for that. Promise me. No, Celeste. I said no. Silence fell between them, thick and trembling. Adriana stepped forward. Then promise me this. If it all falls apart, if I fall, keep going. Keep fighting. Don't let them win. Celeste reached up, cupping her face, pressing her forehead to Adriana's. I would rather fall with you than rise without you. A knock came again, this time harder. The guard captain's voice followed. Your Highness. The council awaits. Adriana reached for her helmet. Celeste stopped her.
No.
Not this time. She took Adriana's hand, laced their fingers. They want to see who we are? Then let them look us in the eye. Together, they walked through the palace corridors, flanked by guards who did not meet their gaze. The doors to the council hall opened slowly, and the room was packed. Advisors, nobility, clergy, all standing now, none seated, as if waiting for the execution instead of a verdict. At the center stood the chancellor, scroll in hand. His face was unreadable. You may speak, he said. Celeste did not flinch. We stand before you not to beg, not to plead, but to claim what is already ours. This union is not a threat. It is a beginning. The crown does not fear progress. And neither should you. Murmurs.
Scoffs.
Then the chancellor read aloud. The Council of High Lords has cast its vote. By a majority of 16-9, the marriage between Princess Celeste and the individual known as Sir Adrian is deemed unlawful, invalid, and void. Furthermore, the Knight Adriana of Thornvalen is hereby stripped of title, declared an enemy of the realm, and subject to immediate arrest. The guards moved before Celeste could even blink, but she stepped in front of Adriana, voice sharp as a blade. You will not touch her. Princess, the chancellor said, stand down. No, then we will use force. Adriana moved to pull her back, but Celeste didn't yield. You'll have to cut me down first. The room froze. The captain of the guard faltered. One of the younger knights lowered his blade. The chancellor's face twisted. This is treason. Then let me be treasonous, Celeste said, daring him. The air crackled, and then a scream, sharp, unexpected, echoed from the hallway. A second later, a guard burst into the room, blood soaking his tunic. Assassins, he gasped. Inside the palace. They've breached the West Wing. Chaos erupted. Nobles scattered. Guards ran. The chancellor shouted orders. Celeste turned to Adriana, who had already drawn her sword. This is them, she whispered. This is the real plan. Adriana's eyes darkened. They're not just trying to discredit me. They're trying to eliminate us. Together? Always. They ran from the council chamber, blades drawn, cloak trailing behind them like fire. Somewhere deep in the palace, steel clashed and walls burned. The vote had passed, but war had begun. The flames spread faster than anyone expected, devouring tapestries and crawling up stone walls like serpents made of smoke. Screams echoed through the palace corridors as nobles fled in silks stained with ash and blood, the grand halls of courtly power crumbling into chaos. Celeste ran with her hand in Adriana's, the weight of her gown slowing her steps, but she refused to let go. Behind them, the sounds of clashing steel grew louder. Rebels or guards turned traitor. She couldn't tell anymore. Left, Adriana barked, pulling her through the servants' passage. The narrow corridor was hot, thick with smoke, the air choking in their lungs. Where are we going? Celeste gasped. Weapons. Armor. We can't protect ourselves with courage alone. They burst into the old training wing, long abandoned, its racks of swords coated in dust. Adriana moved like a storm, shrugging off the remnants of courtly presentation and strapping on pieces of old armor that still bore the insignia of a forgotten king. She tossed Celeste a short blade. Stay behind me. If anyone gets close, aim for the leg, not the chest. You're not strong enough for a kill. Slow them down instead. You think I can't fight? I know you can, but I'm not losing you to arrogance. Celeste's breath hitched at the fierceness in her voice, and then a crash of wood splintering exploded behind them. The door burst open. 3 men rushed in, dressed not in palace uniform but in black leather marked by a jagged silver crest. One Celeste didn't recognize. Adriana did. Her entire body stilled. No, she whispered. Not them. She stepped forward, sword raised. You're a long way from the border, Commander Vex. The man at the front, broad-shouldered, masked, brutal in posture, tilted his head. And you're a long way from the battlefield, Lady Ashwin. Celeste froze. Ashwin. Not Thornvalen. The truth landed like a stone in her chest. Adriana had never spoken of her family, never told Celeste her full name. You said you had no family left, Celeste whispered. Adriana didn't look back. Because I chose to leave them. Vex stepped into the torchlight, pulling down his mask. He was older than Adriana, his features sharper, colder. You were promised to the order. You were trained. Chosen. And now I find you playing queen with a silk-wrapped royal? Adriana stepped in front of Celeste. Touch her, and I will gut you where you stand. Vex laughed, a sound like breaking bone. You always were sentimental. What do you want? She growled. What your crown would not give us. A new ruler. One with blood we can control. You. Never. We don't need your consent. Only your corpse. He lunged. Adriana blocked his strike with the flat of her blade, metal sparking. Celeste backed away, heart slamming in her chest. Another attacker lunged toward her. She remembered Adriana's words, aim for the leg, and slashed blindly. The blade met flesh. A scream. Blood sprayed across her gown. She gasped, horrified and exhilarated. Adriana fought with a precision that was terrifying, elegant, fluid, brutal. 2 down. The third grabbed Celeste, dragged her backward toward the open doorway. Adriana! Celeste screamed. Adriana turned, saw her lover in danger, and something in her face fractured. She dropped her sword, ran barehanded, tackled the man to the ground. They rolled, struggled. Celeste scrambled for the blade, threw it to Adriana, who caught it mid-motion and drove it through the attacker's chest. Silence fell, thick and wet. Blood pooled at their feet. Celeste stared at her shaking hands. I stabbed someone. Adriana pulled her close. You survived someone. There's a difference. What happens now? They won't stop. Not until you're dead. Or I am. Then we keep moving. But before they could, a slow clap echoed behind them. Vex had risen, sword in hand, blood dripping from a wound in his side, but eyes gleaming. Impressive. But pointless. You think the kingdom will rise to defend your little romance? They're ready to crown your cousin. She's already claimed your engagement was coerced. Claimed you were bewitched. Celeste's jaw clenched. She lies. Truth is what we say it is. And the truth is, the air is compromised. The night is a traitor. The rebellion is already being spun as a rescue mission. Adriana stepped forward, sword raised. Come any closer, and I will end you. Vex didn't move. Or you surrender. Save the princess. Come with me, quietly. We let her live. You disappear. Celeste's blood turned cold. Adriana, don't. But Adriana's eyes met hers, something broken shining in them. I can't let them kill you. I won't. If you go with him, I lose you. If I don't, I lose you anyway. You promised, Celeste choked. You said we'd face it together. And we will, Adriana said, stepping toward Vex, sword lowering. But sometimes together means sacrifice. Adriana, trust me. She turned her back to Vex, looking at Celeste one last time. No helmet. No lies. I love you. And then she dropped her sword. And surrendered. The moment Adriana was taken, something inside Celeste shattered like crystal dropped onto marble, too delicate to survive the weight of betrayal. The silence in the aftermath rang louder than any battle cry, deafening and merciless. Blood smeared her gown, dried against her collarbone, the scent of ash still heavy in her hair, but she did not move. She stood frozen in the echo of Adriana's last words, I love you, and the soft clatter of the sword she'd surrendered. The rebels bound Adriana's wrists with metal cuffs scorched black with magic, restraints meant for the most dangerous prisoners, not the woman who had saved this kingdom with every breath of her hidden life. Celeste had screamed, fought, slashed until her hands bled. But they had overwhelmed her. Vex had thrown her to the ground, his boot on her chest, voice like ice in her ear. Try again, and we'll sever her head in front of you. And so Celeste had been still, face pressed to the cold stone, tasting dust and fear and rage. They had dragged Adriana away while she watched, powerless, broken, burning. When she was finally released, the throne hall had already been abandoned, the palace overrun by uncertainty and cowardice. The chancellor had disappeared. Duke Ellery fled to his estate. No one claimed responsibility. No one offered aid. The smoke from the fires still lingered over the courtyard, as if the very bones of the palace mourned. Celeste locked herself in her war chamber alone, unwashed, untouched. She refused healers, refused food, sat in silence with Adriana's helmet in her lap, fingers tracing every scratch, every dent, each one a story she had not yet been told. The only ones who dared breach her solitude were Lady Marin and a young page from the archives named Corin. They found her on the second night. She hadn't slept. Couldn't. They're moving her, Marin said, voice tight. At first light. Across the northern pass. Under heavy guard. Where are they taking her? Celeste's voice was hoarse. To Dunrin, the fortress beyond the border. No jurisdiction. No hope. Then we bring hope to Dunrin, Celeste whispered. Corin, barely more than a boy, stepped forward with trembling hands and a rolled map. There's an old smuggler's route, the forest path between the ravines. No one uses it anymore. Too dangerous. But if you ride hard, you could reach the convoy before they cross the river. Marin stared at the princess. You would risk everything? Your title, your life. She risked everything for me, Celeste said. This crown means nothing if it costs me her. Then we must act now. Before word spreads. Before they're reinforced. They won't expect me to come. They think I'll hide. That I'll submit. Celeste stood, still wearing the stained ivory gown, shoulders squared. Let them see how wrong they were. She disguised herself in leathers from the old armory, pulling on boots that had belonged to her mother's guard, braiding her hair back in the style of queens who had led armies, not tea services. At her waist, she strapped 2 blades. One was ceremonial. One was stolen. When she emerged from the war chamber, the guards still loyal to her bowed, not out of protocol, but out of something deeper. Reverence. Resolve. A young captain knelt. Your Highness, say the word. We're-eyed. No armies, Celeste said. No banners. I go alone. One escort, no more. This isn't a war. It's a rescue. Marin's eyes narrowed. You will face a fortress. Then I'll tear it down stone by stone. You won't survive it. Then I'll die trying. Just before she mounted the horse, she paused, took Adriana's helmet from the saddle, held it close, whispered against the cool steel, "I'm coming." They rode under the veil of midnight, no torches, no crests, only silence and the sharp rhythm of hooves. The cold bit at her skin, the wind lashing her cheeks like pennants. She did not sleep, could not. Every moment that passed, she imagined Adriana chained in some dark cell, alone, thinking she'd been abandoned, thinking Celeste had chosen power over love. She would not let her believe that, ever. By dawn, the trees had thickened, and the path narrowed into an ancient road of cracked stones. The river lay ahead. So did the convoy. Celeste signaled her escort to halt. Through the brush, she could see them. 5 wagons, 20 men, Adriana at the center, bound and gagged. Her face was bruised, but her eyes still burned with defiance. Celeste turned to Corin, the only one who had followed her to the edge. "Get back to the city. If I don't return by sundown, light the pyres. Let the people know what was done. And you, I do not return without her." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "You were never meant to be just a princess." Celeste smiled grimly.
No.
"I was meant to be her queen." She waited until the guards began to eat, waited until their attention drifted. And then she struck. Blade flashing, body low to the ground, she moved like wind through fire, cutting, slashing, unrelenting. They shouted. They scrambled. And they fell. But there were too many. One tackled her from behind, knocking her to the ground. Another raised his axe. And then Adriana moved. Somehow, she broke her bindings. Somehow she rose. And when her fist connected with the nearest guard's throat, he dropped. She dove for a blade, caught at midfall. And then they were fighting side by side again, backs pressed together, blood and fury and hope. When the last man fell, silence returned. Celeste turned. Adriana stood panting, shaking, eyes wide. "You came." "Of course I came." "You're insane." "I'm in love." Adriana reached for her. Celeste ran to her. And when they met, there was no armor between them. Only skin, breath, tears. "You shouldn't have come alone," Adriana whispered. "I didn't," Celeste said. "I came with everything that matters. We can't go back." "No," Celeste agreed. "We go forward." But behind them, in the trees, steel glinted. Shadows moved. More were coming. "Then we run," Adriana said. Celeste nodded.
Together.
And they fled, hand in hand, into the forest. Into the unknown. The forest swallowed them whole. Branches clawed at their cloaks, mud clung to their boots, and the cold seeped into their bones like guilt. They ran until their lungs burned, until the sounds of hooves and hounds faded behind them, until only the heartbeat of the earth kept pace. Celeste stumbled, falling to her knees in the moss. Adriana was beside her in an instant, bloodied, panting, one arm still half-bound, her fingers gripping Celeste's shoulder like a lifeline. "We can't stop," she whispered. "They'll follow." "They're already following," Celeste gasped. "But we need rest or we'll both collapse." They found shelter beneath the broken remnants of an old hunting cabin, its roof caved in, its hearth long cold. Adriana gathered what she could for a fire, her hands trembling with exhaustion and pain. Celeste leaned against the stone wall, watching her move, still in disbelief that they had survived. "I thought I lost you," she murmured. "You did," Adriana said softly. "But I found my way back." The fire sparked reluctantly to life. They sat side by side, knees touching, faces bruised and hollow. The silence between them was different now, not the stillness of secrets, but of survival, of knowing there were no more masks to wear. Celeste took Adriana's hand and turned it over, tracing the faint scars on her knuckles. "I never asked what your real name was," she said. "Adriana Ashwin. And if I'd known, you would have seen the bloodline, not the girl who broke from it." "No," Celeste whispered. I would have seen both. And wanted you anyway. Adriana swallowed hard. Do you think they'll believe it? That we ran because we love each other? Not because we wanted power. They'll believe what makes them feel safest, Celeste said. And the truth rarely does. That night, they held each other like armor. No words, no promises, just breath and pulse and the quiet knowledge that morning might bring ruin. And it did. At dawn, a falcon found them, one of the royal messengers, trained to hunt the scent of its intended. It carried a scroll sealed in black wax. Celeste recognized the mark of the Chancellor. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Adriana read over her shoulder. The message was brief, ruthless,
Direct.
Princess Celeste of House Illyria, you are hereby declared absent from the throne and in violation of royal law. The Council of Heirs has been convened. Your cousin Leora has accepted provisional stewardship of the crown. Should you return alone, your safety and status shall be restored. The Knight Adriana Ashwin, known also as Sir Adrian, shall be charged with treason and executed upon capture. No exceptions. The seal at the bottom gleamed with cruelty. Adriana exhaled slowly. Well, she said, that's merciful. It's a trap, Celeste said. If I return, I validate everything they said about you. And if you don't, they erase you completely. They've already started. Adriana turned to her. Then you go back.
What?
You go. Alone. Reclaim your throne. Tell them I kidnapped you. Tell them I bewitched you. Let them believe it. But live. Celeste stood, the letter crumpling in her fist. I would rather die at your side than rule alone. I won't let you, Adriana said. You have a voice.
A crown.
Power to change things. Not without you. Then change the world, so it can have us both. They won't allow that. Adriana stepped closer, cupping her face. Then make them.
How?
Use the one weapon they fear most, truth. Celeste closed her eyes, tears hot and angry. You keep asking me to leave you, and I keep saying no. Because you're brave, and foolish, and in love. So are you. That's why I know what must be done. They didn't speak again. Not for a long time. When night fell, the wind shifted. Hounds were coming again. Metal clanged in the distance. They were out of time. Celeste watched Adriana pack their few supplies, her movements quiet and efficient. We can run again, Celeste said. There's always another forest. No, Adriana replied. There's only one place where we can win. The palace. The court. The throne. The truth. Celeste looked at the letter once more. Then she knelt before the fire, tossed it in. Watched the flames devour the words. Then we go back. Not to beg, not to kneel, but to fight. Adriana looked at her, eyes wide. You mean it? I do. You're either incredibly brave or mad. Both, Celeste said, rising. But I'm done hiding. Even if it means the end? Celeste met her gaze. Then we end it together. In the distance, a horn blew. They were out of time. And out of options. Adriana extended her hand. Celeste took it. And together, they turned toward the path that led not to freedom, but to fire. They arrived at dawn. Not in secret, not under shadow, but through the main gates of the capital, riding side by side on horses streaked with mud and sweat, their silhouettes rising like ghosts from legend. No army flanked them. No banners flew. And yet the city stirred as if it could sense the tremor of history shifting in its foundations. Windows opened. Doors creaked. People spilled into the streets, not to jeer or throw stones, but to watch. Whispers chased their path like wind. The princess has returned. The night lives. They came back. No one dared stop them. By the time they reached the palace steps, the chancellor and every remaining noble stood waiting. The royal banners had been changed. The crest of Celeste's cousin Leora now flew above the gate. It did not matter. Celeste dismounted with the grace of a storm held in flesh. Adriana followed, armor dented but polished, helmet in hand, her sword sheathed but present. They climbed the steps without pause, the hush of the crowd like breath held before a plunge. "You are not welcome here," the chancellor said as they reached the dais. "And yet we came," Celeste answered, voice calm but sharp. "This is no longer your court," he said. "You have forsaken the laws of the realm. Your claim is void." "Then let the realm say that to my face," she said. "Not cowards behind parchment." The great doors to the throne hall creaked open. Celeste turned. "Let them in," she ordered. "Let the people hear what you hide." The guards hesitated, but one, young, trembling, with a scar over his brow, stepped aside and flung the doors wide. The people flooded in. Farmers, bakers,
Healers.
soldiers, servants.
Hundreds of them.
No one stopped them. Not anymore. The nobles recoiled as commoners filled the marble floor. Celeste stepped to the center, facing the court. "You tried to erase me," she said, loud enough for all to hear. "Tried to write over me like a mistake in ink. You forged lies, declared me mad, claimed I was bewitched. You offered me mercy, if I betrayed her, if I denied the truth of what we are." She looked to Adriana, who stood tall beside her, no helmet to hide behind. "But I do not regret our love. I regret every moment I let fear dictate my silence. Today, I reclaim what is mine, not just the throne, but the voice you tried to silence." Ellery scoffed. "A throne cannot be reclaimed by poetry." "Then let it be reclaimed by the people," Celeste said. "Let them choose who they will follow." She turned to the crowd. "You know me. You've seen me walk your streets. You've bled under banners I raised. You've sung songs of the night who defended our borders. Now you see her face. Will you deny her valor because of it?" Silence. Then a voice. "I remember her." A woman stepped forward. Baroness, battle-scarred, her sleeve pinned where an arm used to be. "She carried me from the trenches when my horse fell. No one else dared. I don't care what she is. I'd follow her into fire." Another voice. A blacksmith. "She saved my son during the river breach." A soldier. "She stood in front of my blade when I faltered. Called me brother." A dozen more. 100. Then cheers. Then chants. "Adriana."
Celeste. Queen. Love.
The chamber trembled. The chancellor paled. "This is treason." "This," Celeste said, stepping toward him, "is truth." Leora stood behind him, eyes narrowed, mouth tight. "You would risk civil war over your heart?" "I would risk nothing," Celeste said, "because I already won." She turned, held out her hand. Adriana took it. The entire court watched as the knight knelt, not in surrender, but in devotion. Celeste smiled. "I have one vow left to speak." She looked to the people, to the nobles, to the court. "You may keep your titles, your land, your old ways, but this kingdom belongs to those who fight for it. And I will fight, for justice, for peace, and for her." The throne behind her stood empty. She stepped past it. "Burn it if you must. We'll build another." No one stopped her. The chancellor lowered his eyes. Leora said nothing, and the people cheered, not out of duty, but out of love. That night, under the open sky and the roar of 1,000 voices, Celeste and Adriana stood before the kingdom, not as princess and knight, but as partners, equals, chosen. Celeste wore no crown. She didn't need one. Adriana wore no helmet.
She didn't need it.
When they kissed, it was not scandal. It was history. It was a vow sealed not by gods or thrones or bloodlines, but by choice. Together, they reigned. And together, they were free.